Anyway,
Well,
what's more interesting and I want you to talk about is the fact that he had basically the first celebrity reality TV show.
that's what I was just gonna say. Yeah, and we talked
Yeah.
about this the other day.
Yeah.
So the thing about Ozzy Osbourne is there would be no Kardashians, at least in the way that we know the Kardashians today. There would not be that show if it weren't for Ozzy Osbourne and his show, The Osbournes, coming first. That was the very first, um, uh, documentary style reality show that went into a celebrity's house and just
Was
videoed
it on
all of them.
MTV?
Yeah, it was. I think it was on MTV. I think, yeah, or Comedy Central. I don't remember. One of those back in
Wait,
the early 2000s, and it lasted like 3 or 4 years, and nobody had done that before. And within a year, there were like 10 copycat shows, including the Kardashians. But they wouldn't have. Nobody would have like greenlit the Kardashian show, and had it not been for Ozzy coming first and showing that this could be a whole new genre.
when the show first came out, people were telling me, "Hey, Osbourne's going to have a show. You're going to watch it?" I'm like, "No, he's too addled. Why would I watch it?" And they said, "How do you know he's addled?" I'm like, "Look, I've seen the guy do an interview like a year before. His brain isn't fully functioning anymore, at least not coherently."
Yeah, but that's the genius of that show. It's when you think about it, so you can compare this to shows like there's another Ozzy show, which was Ozzy and Harriet, which was the longest running TV show for a long time on TV. And it spawned all these copycats like Leave It to Beaver and all these other family oriented shows where everything was all wholesome and dad always like back in the
Father
day,
knows best.
father knows best. Yeah, dad always had the right answers and mom's always in the kitchen and all this crap. And that would not fly today. But you know, they in the '60s, the networks wanted more of those. The old ones were starting to cycle out, and they wanted more of them because it was such a staple. But it's like, well, how do you do something that's different? Well, come 1964, you had the Addams Family, and right after that, the Munsters, which take the family dynamic. They're doing the same shows, the same kind of things they're dealing with, but instead, it's like all these monsters from horror movies, and they don't know they're monsters, and whatever. It's just twisting it. And then you had I Dream a Genie, and you had Bewitched, putting a little magic in there. They had to keep changing it around. So by the early '70s, it's like, well, what haven't we done? Well, then you get All in the Family. You get the deconstruction of these shows. So we'd never seen that in the reality space. But to take those old tropes, of like dealing with bills or dealing with whatever everybody deals with, but in a different way. And you have Ozzy Osbourne in there, who is, addled from just the, 4 lifetimes worth of living, and it just trying to deal with all these like things that were just popping up, which are just everyday things. And his 2 kids, who were like practically adults at that point, just sort of like, oh my god, what are we gonna do? This is ridiculous, And Sharon trying
Yeah.
to hold the fort down. That's a great dynamic. It was hilarious, and we used to love that show. We didn't watch every episode, but when we watched it, we always enjoyed it. Anyway,
What
I'll miss the
years
guy.
was it,
He was entertaining.
was it on TV?
What I want to say like around 2003 to 2007, somewhere in there.
All right, so let's go on to something political and international now. There have been a handful of elections over the past few months in which the person that Trump is not in favor of has won the election. I'm talking about Canada, the UK, and Australia, where the Labour governments all won re election, where all three of the governments were not popular and they remain highly criticized within their own nations. Albanese in Australia is not a favorite of the nation, certainly. What's the fellow's name in the UK?
Starmer.
Okay. He's not a favorite of the UK citizens right now, be it polls. And Carney, he's still there and he's kind of like milk toast. And, he'll make a mistake or two, but he seems to be more of a bureaucrat than anyone else. That's his background, actually. Point is, Donald Trump helped get these people elected. People in these countries weren't maybe voting for the actual labor governments. My contention is they were voting against Trump, attacking their countries with his verbose usage of threats. Trump has been criticizing Lula da Silva in Brazil. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Brazil has some problems, just like the ANC has some problems in South Africa. They're not well liked by half the population. Lula da Silva has a vote for some of his legislators coming up this year, and they now, via polling, believe that he's going to, not he, his party is going to do better because Trump is criticizing Lula da Silva so much and threatening Brazil so much. So my question to you, I know what your answer is going to be, but does Trump see this? Can Trump take a lesson from this and learn to tone it down a little bit and not get his political opponents elected to power? And clearly, he can't.
When has he? He can't. He's never been able to self-regulate like that. I think he's in denial that that's even part of the reason that a lot of those opponents, wind up coming into power. I think we might be seeing a little bit of a changing of the guard right now, and so we'll see how that affects his behavior and his reactions to stuff like this. Because I think we're starting to witness the beginnings of the GOP turning against him, and that's a combination of factors of the Epstein files and their bases of these guys and women who were brought into office partly because they promised things like that they would get to the bottom of these conspiracy theories, and that's number one on the hit list, right? And now all of a sudden they're feeling the heat. There are several of them that are coming out against what Trump's saying and that they want to release them. We'll see if that happens. But more importantly, Trump's reviews, Trump's support is lower than it's been since he last left office. It's at 37% right now.
Whose poll is that,
polls.
Scott? Whose poll?
I think it was the YouGov slash. It was one of the big ones. Just came out, and that's supported several others that have come out as well. These aren't like, they're not partisan polls. He's higher on the partisan polls where the pollsters are swing to the right a little bit. He's come out a little higher on those. But the ones that are sort of in the center, he's come out in the mid 30s, high 30s on a lot of stuff. So he's kind of underwater. When that happens, of course, people start to get a little more brave about crossing the lines that they wouldn't normally. So we'll see. We'll see if it has any bearing.
I think, as we've said before, probably on the show a couple of times, that the next round for the vote with the House of Representatives is very important. And until that takes place, people are not going to want to step in front of Trump too much. I think after the midterm election, Trump will become a lame duck president. And I think that's when we'll see people really step out and say, no, I disagree. Yeah. And look, that's fine. He can be angry if he wants to be at me, but he has a year and a half left in power. He's gone. And I don't think people are quite so scared of J.D. Vance quite yet.
There's time.
I find it interesting that these political leaders, though, essentially survived because they got attacked by Trump. Now, what interests me also is that in the UK, Canada, and Australia, you have English-speaking public, that they all learned their English in Liberia, of course. We know that. Point being that they understand what Trump is saying, and they take it more personally than someone who might be having the English interpreted to them via a translation on the bottom of the screen. And maybe it's a different reaction viscerally, within the body when you hear your country being attacked and you understand it via the spoken language. Mm-hmm. And I think that certainly has helped Carney and Starmer and Albanese. It's
for sure. Yeah.
Bizarre to me that, the Trump effect basically has been the opposite of what he had wanted internationally with the leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Case in point.
Well, he's pissing a lot of people off internationally, so maybe this is their retribution.
Retribution. Vociferous. retribution.
It's a vociferous retribution.
Anyhow, the alien workforce, migrant labor that is being removed from the United States right now, there was a study that came out last week that said it isn't having a great effect on production in the US yet. However, about 3 weeks ago, another study came out and said that actually on farms, the production is starting to feel a problem.
Yeah, it's been happening in California for a while.
Collecting things. So
yeah, there's a lot of
my question to you,
rotting on the fields right now here.
Are you seeing less fruit in the supermarket right now?
Yep. And seeing a lot of tomatoes, for example. I've had no luck with tomatoes. If they have
personally
them,
or what?
Personally, yeah. I mean, I haven't in any of the stores. Either they're too overripe and you don't want to buy them because there's soft spots or they're mushy, or they don't have them in. Avocados is starting to become a problem around here.
I heard the price of avocados is going up in the States.
Romaine lettuce. There's a bunch of stuff that's been empty shelves the past few weeks off and on where it wasn't the case before. And these are major grocery stores.
Prices going up?
Yeah. Yeah, prices are going up. Not significantly yet, but I think we're just starting to see the beginning of that. General Motors just had a call, and they revealed that they've lost, due to tariffs, they've lost $1.1 billion, and that they haven't factored that into the prices much yet, but that they will, but they're not saying when. So I think it's just we're just starting to see it start.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal came out with an article today, my time today, that basically said that companies as of yet have not started putting in the extra cost to consumers, that they're a little bit scared of doing that they're eating the losses for the time being. A little like you're saying with GM.
Yeah, it can't continue forever.
All right, so let's go on to tariffs now. August the 1st is the tariff deadline. Okay, we saw that Japan, Indonesia, the Philippines agreed to negotiations regarding the tariffs and duties, and apparently things are going to be signed officially with these countries. We have other countries on the clock. India, South Korea are some of the two biggest that should be watched. But before we get into the tariffs, I want to talk to you about the Sovereign Wealth Fund once again, Mr. Summer. Japan has apparently agreed to put in, how much is it? I think it's $550 billion into investment into technology that, Trump doesn't get to single-handedly pick it out, but they're basically going to back projects they've agreed that the administration wants to pursue. Have you heard about that as part of this thing?
Is it? I know they've been talking about stuff. I hadn't heard the final numbers. Is that in yen or in dollars? That's a lot of money.
If it's U.S. dollars, apparently. Huh. If it's yen, it would be very small.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was asking. It's they've been talking about investment and stuff, especially, and then there's been all the talk about the merger of the steel companies to try and get around the 50% tariffs coming in. And some deals been reached there, but I don't know what the numbers are. So maybe this is part of that. Maybe they're sort of rolling this up into that and saying, okay, this is our contribution to your sovereign wealth fund.
It's interesting, though, that if he has been able to get that done from someone like Japan, it's basically something long-term, and we spoke about it before, that I think is good for the U.S. And it's a little like a hostage negotiation in a way.